pardon the interruption. There's plenty of food for seconds or thirds or wherever you are at, so please help yourself. Julie and Ken Walker are going to share with you about the Catholic Men's and Women's Conferences in Columbus.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Julie Walker, and I am our parish's captain for the... how do you know? Is it that obvious? And I'm our parish captain for the Columbus Catholic Women's Conference, which is kind of funny because back before I went to the conference, I really didn't, I'm going to be honest, I didn't want anything to do with the conference because I heard that it was a women's conference. I'm going to be honest with you, I am not a girly girl. I don't do petties, I don't do manis, I don't do any of that. And I thought, oh, it's a day for a bunch of Catholic women to get together and talk about things and cry together and do this and do that. And I'm like, I can't do that. So I had a friend who kept on asking me every year, and I kept on making excuses, truly, because I really didn't have other things going on. But I'm like, oh, I've got this, I got to go out of town for that. And so one year, she's like, Julie, and I'm like, okay. So I went, and honestly, it was amazing. It was absolutely positively amazing. They had great speakers, great music. The bishop is there to do the Mass. Biggest thing was the adoration. We had adoration, which was just absolutely beautiful. That brings you to tears. The best adoration probably I've ever had, aside from the Steubenville Conference, which that's another talk for another time. So the women's conference is on February 15th, Saturday. And the good thing about that is we have a bus. The women's group has a bus. It's free. That will take you, we leave at 6:30 in the morning, 6:30, 6:45, so that you don't have to drive down to the fairgrounds for the conference. The conference is $50 right now. I think it's $50 right now. Students are $35. And like I said, we have a free shuttle, a free bus that will take you down to the conference. We meet here at church, and we go down together and spend the day together. And it is just absolutely positively beautiful. The speakers this year, a lot of times we have good speakers at the women's conference, but the men always have these wonderful speakers. But this year, we've got amazing speakers. Father Ricardo, who did the rescue project that we watched before OCIA officially started, he is going to be there, and he is speaking. His sidekick, Mary Guilfoyle, I've had the privilege of meeting her in real life and talking with her, and she's amazing. She's going to be there. Sister Torres, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with her, but I've heard all kinds of wonderful things about her. And if you have come to church and experienced, sometimes for our missions, we have the Vigil Project. They're a musical group that come here to sing for us, and they're amazing, and they're actually doing the music this year at our women's conference. So the day is wonderful. It is from 8 to 5, and it's like, oh my goodness, 8 to 5, but it goes quick. They feed us breakfast, free breakfast, they feed us lunch, and there's also Mass, like I said, with the bishop, adoration, and then these wonderful, wonderful speakers. New this year, if you're interested in any of this, please see me. It's also in the bulletin. And also new this year, when we usually go every year, we're like, oh, I wish I knew you were going to be there, and I wish I knew you were going to be there, and I didn't see you at the conference. So we decided, the women this year decided, you know what, we need t-shirts so that we can see each other and all this massive crowd amount of people. I think they're up to 1,400 people right now are registered for the conference across the diocese for the women's conference. And so this year, for $10, you can purchase an Our Lady t-shirt. It's going to be in light blue, so that when we're at the conference, we can say, oh, wow, there's one of our people over there. Come sit with us over here. So if you're interested in the conference, it's a wonderful day. Bus is free. All you have to do is get online and buy your ticket and see me for the bus and for a shirt. Even if you want a shirt, you can get a shirt and you don't have to ride the bus. If you don't go to the conference, you can still buy a shirt. There are going to be cards. I guess we'll put the cards maybe on that table over there. There's also, new this year, this is nice, is the QR code that you can just do to sign up for the conference as well. So any questions about the women's conference? Okay. Men's conference.
I sure don't have all that to talk about. That was wow. Well, no, I do, because the men's conference is one of my favorite times of the year. And I've been going to the men's conference for probably close to almost 15 years now. And they have great speakers. That conference is actually the Saturday after the women's conference. It's on the 22nd. We do not have a bus, but that's okay. We try to meet here and we do some carpooling and things like that. This year, one of the big speakers that we have is Deacon Harold Savers, which he's awesome. He's a great speaker. We also have Mark Hartfell. He is one of the big leaders for That Man Is You, which is a men's program. Our tickets are $45, so $5 less than the women's, but that's okay too. And ours goes from 7 to 3 o'clock. So there's a lot to do. It's an incredible day with the men. They have breakfast and lunch. It's a wonderful day to see. Typically in the past, we've had anywhere from 28 to 3,000 men there. And to all see all those men going through reconciliation that day is just absolutely phenomenal. It's a wonderful day. Also, I wanted to let you know, I'm going to throw this out to the OCIA candidates only. The Knights of Columbus are on sponsor for the women's and the men's conference. And we received 2 tickets, free tickets for the conference, as well as a parking pass. So it's going to be first come, first serve. So any of you guys want to go, OCIA, I really appreciate you guys just getting with me tonight so we can get that wrapped up and go from there.
Can I just say one more thing?
Of course.
Okay, real quick. So I am going to be at all the masses, after all the masses this weekend and probably next weekend too with a table. So if you want to sign up for the bus or if you have any questions about the conference, I'll be at the masses. Yes, Mr. Sedlock?
Hi there. So can you give everybody the websites that are with that, like the
Yeah,
men's ministry?
it's on those cards.
on the
Yep, and the cards I just put out there. Yep,
That's a real active link.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Fill you in more.
yeah, I mean, ours is Catholic Men's Ministry, so it's pretty simple, but I mean, yeah, that's on the card.
Also, there are 2 members of our bereavement committee over at a table there. All you have to do is take your plate over to them. They will put it in the composting, the landfill, whatever. They will sort all those products for you. So that's one of the things that they do at every bereavement. And the meal that you had tonight is basically our bereavement meal. They do a fantastic job. Sometimes we don't have a funeral for a couple of months, and then they'll have 2 or 3 in the same week. You just never know. I told them we didn't need dessert tonight, but they do also serve desserts, and that's one of the ways that you could be engaged in our bereavement ministry is just by providing a dessert. So if anybody is interested in serving in our bereavement ministry, you can let me know, or you can see Pat. She raised her hand. Or Roger over there. Roger, raise your hand. That's Pat's better half over there, so you can see him too. Okay? And here we go. Father Blau.
Okay. We have a handout for this evening. I think we're making those. So we're going to start right with a handout because we've got a lot of material. The topic is huge, and so I've got a couple articles in it, and I think next week when we do part 2 of Living for Happiness or Moral Teaching, I want to give you a bunch of articles, okay, and a bunch of websites, YouTube videos that I like that you can just click on. We'll send it in e-form, and you'll just be able to click on it and go right to it. There's a lot of, as you know, the University of Internet can be helpful if you know where to go, but it also makes a lot of foolish people, okay? It's just embarrassing when you see. I'm a fan of looking at SovCits, our dear sovereign citizen friends and their dealings with law enforcement. And, when you got a guy who has a tail light that's out, and the cop comes up and is going to give him a ticket for $30, and it's in 60 days it's going to come to effect. So you got 60 days to get it done, and then you give that ticket to the guy who fixed your light, and he sends it in, and you don't get charged. That's it. To go to jail for assault on a cop because he wanted to give you that ticket, that's nuts. But for us, it can be a moment of learning and knowing that that guy's becoming wiser through the school of hard knocks. And that makes it joyful, and we can them, okay? So I love seeing that kind of stuff. But today is, like I said, a difficult topic, and I think I'll take one, and then we will pass these out immediately. Okay, and then we will pass these out immediately. Okay, so we got about half that we're going to have. So we got about half that we're going to have. So let us turn in prayer in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Lord our God, we ask that you continue to walk with us and be with us. Let us live in the new light of grace and of the Spirit that you've given us, especially through the gift of grace and of the Spirit that you've given us, especially through the gift of baptism. We ask that you be with us during this time to help us. We ask that you be with us during this time to help us understand all that you have for us. We ask this in the name of understand all that you have for us. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Not to worry if you do not get this handout. The first half I'm going to do on the board, okay? And we'll keep that up until I can have everyone looking at this. So.
It wasn't my fault there's no dessert. Aaron said no dessert. I want you to experience heaven now. Aaron wants to withhold it until Easter.
And I just know that the dinner Father is going to provide that first week after you come into the church. That is a fantastic dinner. I just want to honor him right now for the parish picking up that bill. Yeah, he didn't even respond. So, first thing I want to talk about is happiness, because it's a universal thing. No matter where you are, people want happiness. They're hungry. It's a universal thing. No matter where you are, people want happiness. Their hunger for it. And last, some people that don't think they can find it in this life is so sad, because they can. It's one of those aspects of what's going on out west with the fires. I don't believe, and I've taught against it in class, that it's not a judgment on those poor people of Altina. Okay, that little suburb was just aboard middle of the road 9-to-5 workers. What's it? Altanina, yeah. They got burned. They're just white ash right now, that whole subdivision. And they're just 9-to-5 workers. They're not the rich millionaires who entertain us through all the movies we love, okay? So, and so happiness for a baker, let's say, would be knowing how to use temperature right. And so happiness for a baker, let's say, would be knowing how to use temperature right. Knowing how to use ingredients and read the recipe book. Knowing how to use ingredients and read the recipe book. Especially knowing how to use different things with softball player. It's one of those, no, beyond my gifts, okay? It was mostly because of these. I couldn't see the ball, okay? But what's happiness? Knowing how to hit, being able to really hit it out of the ballpark. But what if you can't catch it all? Okay, or you can't run. You're not going to be able to be happy. So being able to run well, being able to field well, let's say for your average player, knowing where to throw it and having a howitzer for an arm, okay? Being able, as I said, to run well and field well, having the smarts for playing that game in the different ways, okay? That would be happiness for a baseball player, right? How about a carpenter? Knowing how to join wood together, knowing how to take hunks of wood and being able to pick out good hunks of wood at the lumber yard and bad hunks of wood. A carpenter knows the difference. I probably wouldn't know it. I only know some of them are bent, and those ones are problematic, okay? Being able to know what nails, how to nail it, what type of joinery you're going to use, what framing you're going to use to make a house. If you know that, you're going to be, let's say, a roofer, and that's going to be happiness for you because you're able to do it well. How about a runner or any exercise? What's happiness for a runner? It's, you know how to do the stretches. You're able to get the equipment. You're able to put in the time and build up to when you're able to get to that race that you're really psyched about. And you do it, and you get I hear there's this thing called a runner's high. Any runners here? They say they just get into it. It's what they do. They love it. I think weightlifters do this. I live with a couple guys. And that's happiness for the runner, to be able to do it well, or baseball to do it well, or carpentry or roofing to do it well, or baking or cooking or whatever to do it well. As a human, this is 2,000 plus years old. This is about 2,300 years old, what I'm coming out with here. Some dead guy named Aristotle thought this through, and everyone went, oh, of course. What's happiness as a human? It's doing all the stuff of human well. Okay? It's thinking well. It's having your willpower do it well. It's choosing well. When your emotions blow up, it's being able to control them. You know? So road rage, I saw a guy do road rage this last week. Holy cow. He kept coming up on the car in front of him, letting the car go and coming up real close because he wanted the guy to get out of the passing lane. The guy was hanging in the passing lane. Okay, I was going up to Kenton. And I was like, whoa, dude, settle it down, you know, holy cow. And the real reason is because to the right, doing a right-hand side turn was completely open. I'm like, dude, you're not doing that well. You're not thinking well. You're letting that passion, so deep desires are called passions, you're letting that take over. That's not right. Okay? He's not doing it well. There's other desires, not just fight or flight. You know, fighting things you don't like, that could be road rage, but it's also desires, the desire for things. We are told constantly that the more things you have, the happier you'll be. Unless they forgot to take the forest dead litter away from your house. All those houses, average cost $3.5 million. All of those houses, okay? What happened to all that stuff they stored up? Nature took it from them. Nature took it from them, okay? So, because out there, they're just average Joes. Nothing special at that cheap house out there. So, that's, for us, happiness is doing human well. That breeds happiness. Don't listen to the fakes who say differently. Okay, don't listen to them. They're lying to us. And because we're material, the more material stuff I can have, the happier I will be. But you see the misery come out of, not just out of the West Coast, but out of people that should be happy. You know, they do one job, a movie, and they're going to get paid double-digit millions for it. And yet they're not happy. Wow, what's their definition of happiness? It's not doing human well. It's not being a great human to the best ability. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep looking at this, okay? How do we believe you get happiness? Which means it comes into acting out, just like being a baker, a ball player, a runner, a human is. There's actions involved, which means you've got to understand, how do we make decisions in what's called morality and ethics, the study of human actions. And ethics, the study of human actions. Okay? Way to do it. And how many of you do not have the hand? Everybody got the handout? Good. Everybody got the handout? Good. Let's look at number 2 on this. Ethical systems in a nutshell. Is there one more? We could use one more. I think it'll come. It'll come very soon. So ethical systems in a nutshell. How do you know the different ethical systems? It comes down to this, and there's a few out there. There's a few options for you of how do you make a decision of what to do, okay? And there's an extra, and you'll get yours, okay? Johnny does an action, and here we've got a need over here for one. I think over in these areas someone doesn't have one. I think over here somewhere. Johnny does an action. That sentence has a subject, a verb, and an object, okay? This got me an A on a huge test. But this is the best way to know it, because we all know that, right? Subject, verb, object. Another word for object is predicate, but it doesn't work here, okay? It's the object. Subject, verb, object. Okay, so how do we know if the action Johnny did is right or wrong? There's two types of ethical systems. A subjective ethical system are when the subject decides if what he did is right or wrong. That first blank is the subject decides. So Johnny could be a human person, Johnny could be a group of people, Johnny could be Johnny could be a culture or a country or a political party. They decide what's right and wrong, okay? That's subjective ethics. Objective ethics is when the object already has an inherent right or wrongness to it, okay? You're going to find that you agree with this so much, but we never talk about it in our culture. You have to go back 2,300 years to find people who came up with this. Objective ethics is when the object has an inherent right or wrong to it. And so, let's go through some different systems, and you'll see this because this is the voice of the age, subjective ethics. So what are the different types of subjective ethics? Look how many there are. Utilitarian ethics, look how many there are. Utilitarian ethics, and raise your hand. Have any of you heard of utilitarianism or anything like that? Okay, it means maximize utility. What works? What's the most useful thing you can do? Do that. Man, that is used all over the place, okay? How about consequentialist ethics? The ends justify the means. That is a raging ethical system today. Relativism, whatever. There's no right and wrong. It's all relative. Okay? It's actually relative to something else you choose is important, but it's all relative. Proportionalism, this is really fascinating. Do that which gives the highest percentage good or the least percentage evil. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it? I mean, people have lived off this stuff. The thing about it is it's crystal ballism. You have to look at your action and say, what's it going to do in the future? It's worse than the crystal ball of Lord of the Rings or the crystal ball thing. Proportionalism. Pragmatist ethics. Pragmatism, a guy named James, come up with the library system, the Dewey Decimal System. I think it's Dewey. He was involved with it. Whatever works is a thing to do. Get it done. Now think about that in history. We have an enemy. This town might be involved in the war effort. I'm not an expert on it. But let's practice different types of bombing on Dresden. See, Dresden didn't have a military function, okay? There were no factories in Dresden. It was a clock factory town, but they said, hey, it doesn't matter what torch Dresden. And they experimented on it with incendiary bombs in the middle of a windstorm. Cultural relativism, this is huge. The culture defines what is good and evil, so follow it. Okay? Just the culture, go with it. So, which means, since any culture is good in and of itself, right? It was wrong for us. I always use Nazi Germany as an example because it's a pure example. It's easy to see. So it was wrong for you Allies to invade Normandy because that was an independent culture. If they just define, killing off a race is okay, then for their culture it's okay, and we should just let them do it. That's what they're saying in cultural relativism. Whatever your culture says is good must be good, because there is no truth, really. Hedonism. Hedonism is a great one. Pleasure is the good that should be pursued at all costs. Okay? Ancient Rome loved that one, and it's alive and well today. Values clarification. Have any of you ever done values clarification? Yeah, it's fun. What they do is they sit you in a group and they say, okay, this is the scenario. What would you do? So you have a loved one who's dying because they don't have their meds. Their meds are on the other side of a river, but that river's that one coming out of Darwin in northern Australia, and it's just a breeding ground for nasty, mean crocodiles. And you have 3 people, and you get to choose which one across to get the meds. Wow. Like, how about we call the UFOs to beam us over? Because that's as stupid as swimming across a river and your whole scenario. That's how we actually is saying, no, your scenario is stupid. Beam me up, Scotty, and beam me over to the meds. That's about as much as Australia. Why would I go to the land of deadly things? Okay, that's a dumb example. And my meds on the other side when I'm on this side, how's that going to happen? Get out of here. So but it clarifies your values. No, it clarifies the way you might think in a stupid situation. Okay? Situation X, this is huge. Every situation is unique, so you really can't do any law because everyone's unique. Love is all you need ethics. This is like Beatlesque ethics, Beatle-type ethics, okay, the Beatles. All you need is love, as long as you love, not knowing that there's about 15 words from the ancient world that are translated love in English. One of them is Charlie Tuna. No, the monster from Jaws. Let's call him Chuck. Chuck from Jaws, the monster, loves Charlie Tuna. They had a word for that. The kind of love that you love something, you chew them up and you spit out whatever's left. They would never use that of a human person. But it's translated love. So when you hear people saying love is all you need, you got to ask which one. The one that can use people or the one that honors the person and reverences the image of God in them. Very different loves, though that word is thrown around all the place. Then nihilism. Nihilism is the latest and is rampant. Nothing really matters. Nothing is true. Live, do your best because you're going to die. That's nihilism. It's right now, it's rampant among many of our atheist friends, and they're not finding a reason to live because of it. Okay? And then this is one thing, and I think, my dear young friends, I think it's gripping at least one generation. Radical independence of the individual. Radical independence. It's a declaration of independence on steroids. I don't need anyone. Play that out for maybe a few months and then get back to you need someone. No man is an island. No woman stands on her own. You need people. You know, just the psychologists who don't believe in God will say, oh yeah, you need people. You need community. You got to have it for mental health. Okay? So being a monk is really, really hard. And you don't want to go that route unless you got God's grace. So don't try to do it in a regular life. Those are all the subjective ethics that are out there. It is the story of the age. It's rampant. And what we're going to be saying is the Catholic Church has a different way. Most of these have only come up in the past few hundred years. They're relatively new, okay? So there's another system called objective ethics. There's three types, really two types with one takeoff. One is natural law, human reasons, participation in divine law. So this is the most egg-heady definition of natural law that's out there. This comes from Aquinas, okay? He says, natural law, okay? Now, right away, because we're like, no one can tell me anything, it's like, law, I hate law. You can't tell me what to do. So realize these are acting on all of us. Whenever we hear law, it's like, okay? It's the participation, so there's a give and take involved, of the rational creature. So the rational creature is the human. We're created and we have reason. It's distinct. It's not nature. It's like out in nature, National Geographic. That's not what natural law is. It's not the laws of there's funny nature, and no, it's strictly speaking, it's the participation of the rational creature who has reason and the divine law, which is the mind of God, and it's for the common good. 5 parts to it. Rational creature participating in the divine mind for the common good. I didn't write that down because it's an egg-heady definition, and you'll be able to get it by the time we're done, okay? That's what the natural law is. It's where the human person, by the basis of reason, comes to know things that are universal. That's what the natural law is, okay? So, there's one type called virtue ethics. It's the ethics of human excellence. It's where we try to strive for excellence. You have a goal called a virtue, and you strive for it. That's really different than the ethics of just mere command obedience, which is the next one, deontological ethics, where you do what you want. It's the ethics of a servant, not slave, but a servant. You do what you're supposed to do just because the lawgiver says it. Virtue ethics says you're to strive for excellence in living, okay? That's what it's all about. Now, this is the thing. Last line on that page. In subjective ethics, there's not a right and wrong relative to some other idea chosen by some subject or person. So it's relative, it's also called relative ethics, relativism, because it's relative to what's love, or what's utility, or ends justify the means, what's the end. So it's relative that. It's also called subjective ethics, because the subject makes the decision. The verb that you do, you can do or not do, okay? Any action is permissible if you have a reason and senses to do it. Next page. Examples of subjective ethics. Here's one, it's a classic. In a small town, there was a lady who got beaten up. She said it was by a black man. Let's put this back in the 50s, 40s, 30s, okay? Well, they don't know how to do it, but there's going to be a riot, okay? It's going to be a riot if they don't do something. And therefore, there's an elderly man out on he has no friends, he has no family, he's living on his own, elderly black man. So why don't we scapegoat him? He'll be the one that dies, and it'll save. Situation ethics, relative ethics says that's okay. Do it. I mean, one man versus a town. The ends of saving the town are more important than the means by scapegoating just one guy. He's only one guy, let him die. That's history, that's happened. But that's a classic example of subjective ethics, okay? Another one, the loving thing. The loving thing is she got diagnosed with dementia. It started, she keeps losing the keys. She was putting them in the freezer. So her husband, because he doesn't want her to do that, her husband takes her life. True story, guy's in jail because he didn't want to take care of her as she got dementia. He just took it upon himself, okay? It's one of these, maybe utility, having her around and having it be taken care of for, wasn't useful for him. Utility, okay? The ends, that end thing. You can name it. You can name over and over and over again. Catholic University, there's a whole section in their library, it's a theology section. And people say it's got more theft than any other section. All these people studying theology, it's got more theft. And why? Because the person says, I can use this better than anyone else. And so they rip off a book because I can use it better than anyone else. Okay? The theft problem on both coasts right now, where if you steal under $1,000, you barely even get a hand slapped. Okay? What about the objective wrong of theft is wrong? All that stuff is paid for. I was a drugstore manager. I ran a discount drug mart. It's all paid for by the company, and yet they add a little bit to it called the sales price to pay for rent, salaries, health care, distribution, R&D, warehouse rental cost, electric, heating, you name it. That little bit they add to the manufacturer's cost pays all that stuff. If you steal what's still in the store, all that money doesn't show up. And insurance doesn't pay retail costs. It only pays manufacturer's cost. Insurance never pays retail cost, because that could be different for any product in the store. So they're out the money. It destroys companies, okay? Those are all subjective ethics. There's no right and wrong. Someone can decide. You can say, and this is the thing, everything, I'm a moderate fan of World War II, okay? Not a fan, I'm a hack historian, okay? And so I'm reading about the Hurtgen Forest. The Hurtgen Forest was, Battle of the Bulge started, and you never heard about the Hurtgen Forest, but that was a 6-month battle. It had more than the Battle of the Bulge, but you never hear about it. And the general who fought it said, at one point, he said, well, we have the men, let's throw them in anyway. Wow, it was a trap. The Germans knew it was happening, okay? So, subjective ethics. Remember, and this I was getting after right there, Germans, everything they did, okay, not the German people, let's say the Nazi party, everything they did was legal. Auschwitz was legal, was according to law. The Bundeswehr, whatever it was called, passed laws saying that was legal. You see that? That's legal. And if there is no universal law over nations, who are we to say they were wrong? Isn't that amazing? This is the power of natural law, that it's a universal law that goes over all worlds. It's unchanging. It doesn't pay attention to geography or anything else. And so, where does it come from? Let's turn to number 4. It's this being, it's this thing, okay? So we're getting at the rational creature. This thing has powers and faculties, and we'll jump that one statement if blind. This is the height of my artwork, okay? We are one thing, we're body, soul, okay? I taught art, think how bad those kids learned. They're all accountants now, you know, they have nothing of imagination. So this thing, this amazing, awesome thing, a body-soul unity. You remove the soul, you don't have a body, you got a bunch of chemicals that go back to what they were. And so this thing has all these faculties, we call them powers, but faculties. Senses, which are data collectors. It takes in locomotion, it can move, it digests, reproduction, it can make another of itself. You know what critter does not, there's a few of them, but you know what big one we have here in the United States that doesn't have the power of reproduction? It's born sterile. Anybody know? Mules. Poor mules, cute little mules, you know. I saw one, there's one up on, someone's got it, it just walks around eating grass and fertilizing. What a wonderful life for a mule. But it's never going to have babies. They're the product of what, a donkey and a horse? Well, that product doesn't have the power of reproduction from day one. Just amazing, you know? It's like, wow. This thing has a power of speech. Volition, which is willpower, 2 words for it, volition, willpower. Of intellect is reason. Memory and imagination, character. You know the difference between character and personality. Personality rarely changes. It's what you were born with. It's how you perceive the world. Character, if you you're not being very temperate, you can grow in that virtue. Character is the combination of your virtues and vices. Okay. Personality. Remember the Myers-Briggs thing. Someone said there's about 16 major personalities currently in the world. I think what's going on, I heard this from a speaker, in gender theory, there's 250 possible genders according to Amazon. And what they're really doing is they're taking personalities and calling them full things. Okay. That's good. So, and then relationality. We have the ability to relate to others in wonderful ways. So this is what we are. Now, if you're blind, these don't determine moral actions, being blind. You can still live a full, happy human life, okay? Just ask a person who's blind or missing one of the 5 senses. If you can't move, if your legs aren't working, you might be able to win one of the things in the Paralympics. Those people are tough as nails. You one of those guys, the wheelchair races, if you go and you come against them in a arm wrestling thing, they will crush you, okay? They're really good. It has not stopped them. If you have digestion problems, get that fixed, okay? Reproduction, we're probably going to talk about a little bit, okay? Nothing serious. Speech, yeah, okay? Volition, willpower. Now, because of Adam and Eve, this was all damaged, so our wills are... You have willpower? Today, yeah, I did. I should have had 2 hunks of that. It's vanilla chocolate peanut crunches. I know. I should have had 2, because that's like 3,000 calories. I think I had 6, okay? So I'll be bouncing off the walls until midnight. But, and then tomorrow I got to think, I can't take as many calories as I did for like 3 days yesterday. But intellect, our intellects were darkened. Now, my good friend Pastor Green said this was destroyed. Any good here was destroyed. We don't believe that as Catholics. The human person was wounded by original sin. That's why we get sick. That's why our legs can bug us, or we can lose it intellectually. You start putting your keys in the refrigerator, you know, things like that. But we're not destroyed, okay? And then we have memory and imagination. Memory is wonderful. It stores things. And then when you need to make a decision, part of memory is bringing up what you've experienced before. If you drove here, it's probably because your memory was working and you remembered when you were docile and you learned from a teacher how to drive well. Okay, memory. And then imagination puts together combinations. So as a kid, I was pretty sure, because my older brother told me, that there were anacondas under my bed that wanted to eat me. okay? And I remember that for days and days. I was like, there's something under the bed, so having to go through do I wet the bed or do I dare the anacondas, And then character, if you're a boss of a company, character's everything. Train you. I've heard a guy say, hey, we'll train you. I need people of character. I need people who are honest and just and hardworking. Now, I taught 5th through 8th grade math, another failure in my list of few accomplishments. They all got out of prison because I taught them how to do their tax returns, But I taught 5th through 8th grade math, and it shows that, and personality can change, and there's some personalities just rub you wrong. You just realize that. But character, I taught math. And in math class, we taught math. In geography, we taught geography. In Spanish, we taught Spanish. We didn't teach geography in Spanish. We didn't teach math in social studies or in Spanish. Where was honesty class? Where was hard work class? Where was sacrifice for others class? Empathy towards the weaker guy class? Where was discipline class and hard work class? Where was orderly life class? I looked at the OSU curriculum. We don't teach it up there. I thought it was a good university. But where's the hard work and integrity and honesty needed to get through all those classes? Where's that? Because they don't teach it there. It's not in any classes. They presume you've got it from your family. That's character. What a good family does, it's the importance of family. It's the most incredible thing. It creates a little human and hopefully over years trains them so they can be a success in the world, at least according to character, okay? Because character, your virtues and your vices, they're going to define you, okay? They'll define you. A guy who's rich and you find out the rich dog was using his island for filth. What a despicable man. I don't care if he gave charity to another charity. He was a despicable man. He hurt people, okay? So that's the power of virtue and vice. Now for us, we believe that each one of these are founts of actions, which means happiness is found in how you act. And these 4 things, the next one down, okay, these are the 4 founts of human actions. Our actions arise out of these. And so, intellect, your thoughts, they give rise to actions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Okay, it might lead to a problem on something. The intellect, the virtue that it perfects the intellect is prudence. The will, your volition, that's your actions. You can think what's good, but unless your will kicks in with enough strength to get you doing it, that's what will does. Intellect is like a blind Olympic athlete. Willpower is a paraplegic with brilliant sight and a scientist mind who's being carried by that athlete. They're a team. The willpower goes, engage, the way to go. This is what we want to pursue, the good. And so, intellect is perfected by prudence and all the virtues around prudence. Will and volition are perfected by justice, our relation to others and other things. Fairness, it's always towards others. Emotions, there's 2 types of emotions. And that's perfected by temperance. Don't eat the whole box of chocolates tonight. That's what my temperance is telling me. Or you may have a headache. Don't drink the whole thing. You'll definitely have a headache tomorrow, okay? Emotions B are the fight or flight emotions. That's probably the best way to put it, the fight or flight emotions. And they're tempered by fortitude, courage. So the whole thing of saying, and you've all heard this, your son says, that's Bloody Ridge, take that machine gun nest. And you got to run up there and do it. It doesn't matter if you're fearful. Of course you're fearful. Those people are trying to kill you. Of course you're fearful. But courage says, I'm going to do it. Now, I read about a kid who was down in Florida, and he would smear himself with pig's blood and then jump in and see if he could hug a shark. Courage, that's stupidity. Remember? It's always according to reason. So stupid things can never be courageous. Okay? You've got to, if you have an attachment to your legs, I think that's crazy. Okay? If you know the dynamics and you know more than me, and you know that I'm not going to thwap myself a few times on the valley floor, That's awesome. That's way beyond me, okay? Jumping out of a personally good plane, again, it's the knowledge of the person. They can say, I can do this. I don't have that knowledge. Seems like craziness to me. It doesn't seem like courage. It seems like brashness. It's not cowardice. It's courage, but in the wrong direction, in the uber way, on too many steroids way, called brashness, like the kid with the shark. And so, these action. Next, for an action to be good, then the parts of a moral act are, what are you choosing to do? What's the object? What's the verb? That has to be a good verb. Okay, remember, the right or wrongness is in the verb itself. I came up and I just hit a baseball, the cop heard. I just hit a baseball. Yeah, but you did it in the middle of a funeral service. You stood up and smacked the ball in the middle of a funeral service. The place has to be right. Well, I just wanted to cure my wife of hiccups. Yeah, but you shot the gun at her and wounded her. That's not how you do hiccups. The object you chose to shoot a pistol at someone I love, that's the wrong verb. The object is wrong. Choosing the right object, but the wrong intention. So I wanted to cure my wife of hiccups. That's a good intention. That's wonderful. So I got that baseball bat. Wrong motive. The motive was good, but the verb was wrong. Okay, the motive, cure her, was good, but the verb was wrong. And lastly, there may be some relevant circumstances. Circumstances can never make an evil action into something good. Now, so if you want happiness, you got to live well. You have to live the verbs of your life well. And then we're going to continue this, so don't worry. We're actually going to end really on time tonight, and next week we'll be able to pick up again. Okay, so there's Cicero had to say. Cicero wrote of natural law. True law is the right reason, and he thought different parts of nature may have been part God, or the gods influence nature in a very specific way. But he's already here. He's always saying it's reasonable. True law is right reason in agreement with what's there. So it's grounded in the human person. It's grounded in reason. It's not the law of bunnies and plants and stars. It is of universal application, unchanging and everlasting. We need not look outside ourselves for an expounder or interpreter of it, meaning every person has it. And there is not to be different laws at Rome or in Athens. Why? Because it's the same rational creature all over the world for all time. Or different laws now and in the future, but one eternal and unchangeable law that will be valid for all nations and for all times. And there will be one master and one ruler, that is God, over us all. And he is the author of this law, its promulgator, and its enforcing judge. The next quote, and what I'd really like to do is get to the chart by tonight. If you have questions, write them down. We want to answer all of them. Look who this is. Why isn't he in the news more? Martin Luther King. The guy was brilliant, okay? We do not judge a man according to the color of his skin, by the content of his character. Absolutely. Not said anymore. It's like he's been rejected. But look what he had to say. Martin Luther King wrote in his letter from the Birmingham jail. If you haven't read that, read that. He's brilliant. And his big concern is, I broke the law. That's why I'm in jail. So how do I know which laws to break? How do I know which laws to break? Okay? And he said, now what is the difference between the two? How does one determine when a law is just or unjust? A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. A just law. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. So he saw a law as overriding what we call civil law. Okay? And if it's not in agreement with the moral law, the natural law, it's an unjust law. To put it in the terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, that's why we also love him. Yeah, woohoo, he was a Dominican. An unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal and natural law. Say it again. An unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal and natural law. Any law that uplifts human personality. So what I'm doing here is I use the word person for this, me, one of you. Okay, personality is what I say is the Myers-Briggs. He's using that, and I think he means human person, a human individual is what he's talking about here. Not the thing that's different than character, okay? So, any law that degrades human persons or human personality is unjust. And therefore, all segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregator a false sense of superiority and the segregated a false sense of inferiority. So his understanding is in agreement with this. Now, we'd love to know where he learned, but he may have just been a voracious reader and picked up Aquinas. And so that's kind of what we're saying. Now, what are we talking specifically? With the human reason applied to what? What are we thinking about? And that's what this next chart is about. So follow me as I go through it. We're going to go from the left-hand columns and move slowly to the right. There are human goods of the different parts of a human person. Any human being can figure this out. Starting at the bottom of the page, there's a foundational good called life. You can't do anything if you don't have life. It is so important for any project you want, okay? That's why, I'm taking meds. I had I couldn't be here when I was, under the weather in ICU, and it was an embolism, okay? I had a pulmonary embolism. Got through it. I'm walking, The next thing is the miserable leg doesn't like being on this planet Earth, okay? But I have a little bit of pain in that leg right now. I'm getting over it. But I take those meds now because I really want life. My bucket list is growing. Okay, I got a lot of things I want to do in this. I haven't been to Mount Kilimanjaro yet, but I think I might be able to get there. So the foundational good of life is foundational for everything. That's how important it is. That value of life is so important. Next up, external material goods, wealth and shelter. Those are external. They're external to the human person. Material goods, they're matter. We work on it because it helps us do our vocation. It helps great being family by having a good house with what you need. Those folks out west, you hope they have a fallback plan because they may have lost everything, okay? Sounds like a lot of them did. Next, there's sensible goods of the body. Health, your health is really important. That's a sensible, knowable good of the body. And your pleasure. Pleasure is important, okay? If you don't have pleasure in life, you got to get that. You got to get something that's fun, something that's enjoyable. You got to be laughing once in a while. If you know someone who doesn't, invite them over for food and fun, okay? Food and fun, not religion, because it's already religious. You're there, okay? That makes it a spiritual event because you're there, whether you're just doing checkers or chess or watching a good movie or whatever. So invite them over for pleasure. Pleasure is a good. And then of the soul, these are things you can't put in test tubes. That's why it's of the soul. And so of the intellect, there's knowledge and truth. It's good to have knowledge. That's why we stress education. But it's not just education in anything. It's what's true. That's what we presume is in every education. It's not the case anymore, okay? Sometimes it can be craziness. So it's what's true, knowledge of the truth. Also, leisure. This goes back to pleasure. It's part of the intellectual. You know what the word where the word school comes from? School, and the book is called, I'll mention it in a moment. School comes from the Greek word. It's a Greek word. It's from schola, not a choir schola. It comes from the word schola. And in Greek, that's the word for leisure. Isn't that interesting? Because if you're struggling on a subsistence level, you won't be able to have reading and writing and arithmetic. If you're on a subsistence level, you can't have leisure to get into education. Okay? Isn't that wild? They knew it. Leisure, schola, okay? From where we get school. Someone's working so those people can go to school. That's what it's all about, okay? That's what that whole thing's about. So leisure is really the contemplation of truth and beauty, art and play, and hopefully through their study they come to love something that they want to go after, because if you find what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That old Irish proverb, okay? So my friend I live with, Italian, like way over Italian, kind of like Fonzie Italian. And when he saw that on Father Hayes' wall, if you find what you love, you never work at a day in your life, in an old Irish proverb. And the Italian guy said, Saccone goes, my great-grandmother made that up. It was on our wall, the Italians, okay? The Germans said the same thing. Humans figured this out. So, and then of the soul, will, starting at the bottom, friendship is such a good thing. Matrimony and family, it's the key to human character. It's a key to so many things. The common good, we don't talk about this, and this is a problem. The common good is very important. Okay, it's good. It's not a common discrimination, but it's a common good is very important. It's a part of justice. Integrity and moral virtue in the individual person. And lastly, religion, giving whatever powers out there, the one that cops and firemen and military people take their oath for. President of the United States take an oath. What are they taking an oath to? If there isn't something out there, we could just call it a higher power. AA does it that way, and that's good. But that virtue of religion is needed, lest we think we are the highest in the land. That's a little person who thinks they're a little god is a real psychopath, okay? If you think this is what C.S. Lewis said, if you think you're a piece of toast and you're looking for an egg to come up, a poached egg, to become a partner with that poached egg, we can work with you. But if you think you're God, you're a nutcase, okay? We can't even work with you if you think you're God. So that's what virtue of religion does in society. It also teaches a moral code that no government, because government's always by the party, the other people in the other party are never going to listen. If the next party comes in and starts teaching a moral code, who are you to teach us anything? But if it's a religion, if it's the virtue of religion, given their great to the cosmos, whatever, the Almighty, or as we know, Jesus Christ and God the Father, now that's what religion can bring. It's a utilitarian use of religion, but it works. Remember, the Founding Fathers said, our Constitution is impossible to govern a people. It can happen if they're not bounded by virtue, character, and religion. Okay? Because the person who thinks they're God is a nutcase, is a demon. That's Hitler, that's Stalin, that's Mao, that's Pol Pot, all those demons, they thought they were God to their country. So those are the human goods. Now, the first principle of moral thinking, of moral living, is in things. Do good and avoid evil. All humans know this. That's why criminals who would never darken the door at church hide their actions, because they know they're doing an evil. We're not talking evil, spooky demon stuff. We're just doing the opposite of good, okay? Do good, avoid evil. And so we take every one of those human goods and we see, what does that mean if we are going to go and look at life? Do good, avoid evil with life. It means you protect it. You watch over it. You foster it. You never act against it. Do you ever wonder why the church says abortion's wrong and murder's wrong and wars, you got to make sure it's a just war? It's because we say there is life, a foundational good, and we have to do good, never evil. And so there's natural consequences to it. These are the secondary principles of the moral life. And so I don't have them all down there, but every single one of them will be looked at, those goods, the second column over, the third column over, will be looked at under the lens of do good and avoid evil. So lastly, a very short, there's an article from the news, from your catechism on the natural law. Read that. The different types of law are in that drawing that starts eternal law. If you turn the next page to where it's got black writing with eternal, my hand script, my scratch, okay? And then when you look at do good, avoid evil in terms of all of those goods of the human person. So reason is saying these are goods of the human person. There's nothing wrong with these things. These are awesome. We need to make them flourish. We need to make them stronger. We need to honor them in other people as we want in ourselves. What you get in the 10 Commandments is basically a negative statement that's preserving all those good things. Don't kill. Preserve life. It's foundational. And all the other things. That's why Sixth Commandment about sex, that's why it's so important, because it's the way the human life gets on this planet. That is really important, okay? There was an island, two islands. You can think this up, just a story. On one ship, a cruise ship crashed, men and women, bummer, okay? They just went, but life went on for a century, okay? New bambinos came up because they had the power of making new people. The other island was a cruise ship with just soldiers on it. Crashed on an island, no one killed in the crash. They lasted 60 years. They didn't have the power to make new humans, okay? Now, science tries to reduplicate making new humans that man and woman have, but that's why the sixth commandment is so important. It's one of the many, like the seventh commandment, personal property, the wealth you need to do your vocation, that's important. And the church promotes all of them. So that's the 10 commandments, and these are the things that are prohibited by the 10 commandments. This is the stuff when you say, why mortal sin? Who makes this up? We just walk through how it's made. Human reason thinking about human goods and how to preserve them and where you can't step across a line. That's where they're about, okay? Next, just an article, and we're going to close on this. The article is a concise summary for high school students. So if you know any of them, shove this in their face. Bribe them. We go to Wendy's. We go to our Red Robin. If you tell me what this is about, okay? Bribe them to get them to read it. It's a good, the author, Deacon Douglas McManaman, I recommend anything he's written. He's really good. And then if you page through it, that's 10 commandments, that's 10 commandments, you'll get to the article, The Benevolence Behind the Moral Law. The benevolence behind the moral law. Why? Because if you want to be happy, you got to live right, according to human nature, the fullness of human nature. It doesn't mean doing anything. That'll get you thrown off the team in any sport. You just can't do anything. But to be happy as a baseball player, you do baseball well, or as a baker, baking well. And to be happy as a human being, live being a human well. Prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude, all the virtues, your vocation, and everything else. And so to know how to be free of anything holding you back from that's freedom. The freedom to run my race with nothing holding me back. And your race is your vocation. It's the people you love, okay? So that's where the moral law comes in, okay? A participation by human persons through their reason in the divine mind, and it affects society for the common good. That's what we believe human reason is. It's not, as you've probably heard, oh, well, that must be, they studied dogs and they figured out how universal, no, that's not it. It's looking at this stuff, okay? And the code, a nice short code, was the 10 Commandments. Now, if you're from a Protestant world and you heard the Catholic Church change the 10 Commandments, I love that stuff, okay? In Exodus 20, there are 17 verses in his rendition of the 10 Commandments. You can only have 10. Which ones do you get rid of, right? Okay, so that's where that came about. We combined a couple in the beginning and broke up a couple at the end. Pastor Green breaks up a couple at the beginning and combines some of the few at the end, okay? So you're going to have to combine and condense to get 10 statements called the 10 Commandments. That's where that comes from. We're not cheating anyone, okay? For us, the one they say we're cheating is, thou shalt not have false gods before me. No kidding. Don't do false gods. Whether it's carved or poured or cement or pounded on an anvil, don't do false gods. And for most of us, as you're reading that thing, false gods might be the stuff you carry in your pocket, okay? False gods might be the things in your house, okay? Or ideas we have. It's way beyond an actual physical Baal or Venus or Aphrodite or one of those classic Roman Greek pagan idols. We're way beyond that. We're in our heads, okay? So that's the natural law. That's where we get this stuff. It's by observing human nature, and all humans know, do good, avoid evil. Now, do they apply that to the way they get their finances? That's how you come up with honesty and integrity in finances, okay? Do they apply that with how they deal with their enemies? If they do, they treat their enemies well. If they don't, they have them killed off by the mafia boss. That's kind of where we get all this stuff. It's not made up and imposed. It's an expression of honoring what the human person is like. It honors what a human person is like. So, basta così. Let us close with the prayer, the Glory Be. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, Son, and Spirit. Consider reading Romans 2. He's going to hit on this in Romans 2 and in the Book of Wisdom in a Catholic Bible, Book of Wisdom, chapter 13. So Old and New Testament, Romans 2 and chapter 13, and see if you can see and listen for the echo of what I've said here. Go get them. God bless.